The moon hung like a sharpened coin in the night sky, glinting down on a city that never slept. Somewhere within the labyrinth of the rear palace, a blade whispered through air, finding purchase in soft wood and yielding flesh. She followed the scent, bitter almond, the residue of a particular toxin she'd once tasted. A taste that meant only one thing, danger. And it led her deep into the winding corridors of the palace, through moon-dappled gardens and across courtyards where koi fish glided silently beneath paper lanterns. Jinshi wanted to call after her, to demand she wait, to insist she let him help, but she was already gone. He bowed slightly, offering her a document sealed with red wax. It was a portrait, a death certificate, and a detailed autopsy of a courtesan, the same courtesan whose death had taken place years ago in the red light district, but the evidence had pointed to a tragic accident, a desperate attempt at escape gone wrong. It wasn't just poison. It had always been about power and what they killed to keep hidden. She looked up, meeting Goshen's worried gaze. "Tell Jinshi," she said, her voice low but resolute. "I'll need access to the Imperial archives, all of them. But this was damning. There could be no mistake about it this time. The courtesan hadn't died of a broken neck. She'd been poisoned, slowly, deliberately. And Gao had been there, had signed the papers himself, ensuring justice didn't come for him. The same courtesan who had raised her, taught her the ways of the world, shielded her from its worst. And at the bottom, a name signed in elegant brushstroke. Minister Gao. The same Gao who had sent assassins after her before. The same Gao who had tried to buy her silence. The same Gao whose face had always seemed a bit too familiar, a bit too cruel for comfort. "This was restricted," he said, "but now Jinshi says you should see it." She took it, her fingers brushing his. For a moment, their eyes met and she saw her own shock and determination mirrored back at her. Then she turned away, breaking the seal. The shadows had claimed her now, and he knew better than to follow. With a sigh, he turned back to the room where it had all happened, his face hardening with grim determination. He would find the person behind this, even if he had to tear the entire empire apart brick by bloody brick. Finally, she stopped before an unremarkable gray wall. She pressed her ear against the cool stone, listening intently. Voices, hushed but distinct. She could hear every word spoken inside. Not a sound escaped the chamber except the rustle of silk and the hiss of a dying breath. Lianji's eyes, searching hers, found only the broken hairpin lying on the ground, its tip stained black with the residue of the poison. She picked it up, her expression grim. "They were aiming to silence me," she said, her voice betraying nothing of the turmoil within. And they nearly did. Her eyes, usually so bright and full of life, were now cold and hard as polished gemstones. "You're not safe here anymore," Jinshi said firmly, his hand instinctively going to the sword at his hip. "I was never safe," she replied, her gaze fixed on the ground, "but now I'm aware." Then, as if realizing the gravity of the situation, she looked up, meeting his worried gaze. "I won't be kept in the dark anymore," she said, her voice low but resolute. "I know what I must do." The assassin was fast, silent, deadly. And when they struck, they found only blankets where the Emperor's consort Mao Mao should have been. But the Emperor's consort was awake. She had moved her sleeping mat hours earlier, suspecting something. Now, unseen and unheard, she watched the killer from the shadows. She waited. The assassin searched the room briefly, then slipped out the window, melting into the darkness. When the guards rushed in moments later, it was to find only an empty bed and a string of bells that clinked softly, loud enough to rattle the palace walls. Mamo emerged from the shadows, her expression unreadable. The assassin had vanished like smoke in a breeze, but she was already chasing shadows of her own. Moments later, Jinshi burst through the door, his face pale and etched with worry. "Are you all right?" She slipped past him, moving like a wraith through the palace halls, her steps silent and sure. Hours later, Mamo stood before Gaoshin, Jinshi's loyal aide, her expression grave. What she saw drained the color from her face. The document was old, yellowed with age. The pieces clicked into place with sickening finality. All those years ago, she had suspected foul play. Mamo stared at the name, her mind racing, piecing together the tangled threads of her past.